Thanks for being here, everyone. I think there's only me that stands between this moment and the lovely sunshine outside. So well done for staying till the end of the day. It's been I've been here all day absorbing some of the key messages, some of the key lessons, some of the key insights. And what I'm going to try and do in just next 10 minutes is really try and make some reflections on what I've heard. So I'm Professor of Urban Futures in the School of Geography at the University of Leeds. I spend my time, I'm a civic entrepreneur, so I spend a lot of my time moving between the university and the city, exploring what civic innovation might be for many people in terms of transforming the city towards sustainability. So really, I do this talk to a lot of groups, but I'm going to put an inflection on it towards West Yorkshire today. And this is my latest book, How to Save the City, a guide for emergency action. What would we actually have to do in West Yorkshire to transform it, given some of the key challenges we've been hearing, but also to respond to that sustainability innovation agenda, which we've been hearing today in terms of building a more prosperous and innovative ecosystem in West Yorkshire. Okay, so what I'm going to say is based on 25 years of research into what makes sustainable places. I've written several books about this. You can certainly check me out on LinkedIn. But I'm also involved in many civic opportunities. And one of the things I'm bringing forward based on my work is not just academic work, but interventions on the ground. So there's a number of ones that I've been making, including Leeds community homes, which we've been trying to scale community-led housing across the city based on low carbon materials. The one that I actually live in is the top right, Lilac Grove co-housing, which is, I live in a straw bale house in West Leeds, and we're trying to scale those prototypes to replicate what zero carbon housing in the future might look like. We're working on Kirksall Valley, one of the biggest urban green spaces in the UK. Could it be? Leeds is our West Yorkshire Silicon Valley. One of the exciting propositions is what that green valley represents as an underused space we could bring back in for green investment. And Climate Action Leeds, which I've been the strategy lead for, which is a city network of climate innovators, and we have several community hubs. Okay, so what I do essentially is I do high velocity, high impact, high return, civic innovation for sustainability, right, on the ground. But what I'm interested in line with the challenges and with a sense of purpose. Because what I've been trying to focus on today is what is the sense of purpose that we all share in terms of building a different kind of West Yorkshire. And, a recent survey looked at the UK, what's important to people from the UK, essentially family health, also making money, but work life and security. So some of those key values, how do we build those in to our innovation processes? And I've also heard a lot today about technology, big tech solutions, which is absolutely what we need. But of course, they're only one part of the story. Yeah, we need the ecosystems those technologies depend on. We need institutional renewal. We need different user practices, and we need different business strategies, right? If we're going to make those big changes on the ground. So a lot of it starts with the challenges that we're facing. As a West Yorkshire community, everything from the index of multiple deprivation to not hitting climate targets to extreme weather and to habitat loss. So these do, whether we like it or not, represent our baseline challenges that we need to respond to. And of course, we've got that big sobering global picture as well. Yeah, these planetary boundaries that we've been crossing. You can see the graph on the right there. We've been crossing more and more planetary boundaries. Those are the safe thresholds beyond which life on Earth becomes less stable. Yeah, and we know we've crossed 6 out of the 9 boundaries now. So that's going to affect everywhere on the planet, including West Yorkshire. But one of the key things that I try to express, and I do a lot of these talks to schools, colleges, councillors, is that what's the carbon challenge in Leeds? Because we hear a lot about this shift to net zero. Well, there's that Paris carbon budget. We need to hold global temperatures to 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels. We know that, right? But basically, Leeds has a carbon budget, like everywhere in the world does, to hold those temperatures. And for Leeds, it's 40 million tonnes, right? But Leeds' annual carbon emissions are around 4 million tonnes. So we don't have to be scientific geniuses to realise we've got around 10 years left of a carbon budget before we effectively have to be zero carbon as a city, according to that scientific baseline of 1.5 degrees. So that's a real challenge because it's the grey area we have to stop using. It's the red area, right, that we essentially is our budget left. So we are on a bit of a whether we like it or not, a carbon roller coaster to get to that point by the 2050s, let's say, and the annual decreases in carbon emissions, which we'll need to see to achieve that. So look, we need strategic thinking. And I've got this Learn, Act, Build approach, 10-point plan for strategy, which I go through in my book. I call it the Learn, Act, Build approach. We need to learn different things. We need to act in a particular way. And we need to build alternatives, because people love alternatives, okay? People love to look under the bonnet and see how things are working. And so who are the players that are going to do this? In my work, I try and outline the different kinds of civic actors that we're going to need. Everything from the entrepreneur to the policymaker and the planner, the teacher, the researcher, all those people coming together in a new coalition to make this transition. And it's all about those big moves we're going to make a safe and prosperous West Yorkshire. Much of it starts with mobility. Now, we heard the challenge from peers, and we've heard mobility crop up all day. We do need to maximise electric vehicle use. We know that. Okay, we know that as a challenge. But to get to those zero carbon targets is going to need much more. We're going to have to shift mobility norms, and that really means exploring what a compact and safe and active travel city is, because that's going to have to do the heavy lifting. The kind of growth we're expecting in the city centre, we're going to need active travel to do the heavy lifting once we've saturated the market with electric vehicles. So this is about shifting norms, user practice norms. We're going to have to reimagine the economy. There's a lot of talk about the nature of the West Yorkshire economy. What I'm interested in is what is the West Yorkshire economy 2050? Is more regenerative, more circular. There's some sobering, interesting issues around it. There's some iron economic laws which we have to deal with here. One is decoupling the economy from environmental impact. We know that we can do the relative one, the relative decoupling. Here's impact, here's relative decoupling of here's economic growth, here's relative decoupling. But we need to do absolute decoupling. We need to absolutely decouple each unit of economic output from environmental impact, in a way that it decreases every year and not just gets a little bit less, but still increases. And that's a significant departure in terms of economic planning, and it's a point we're not at yet. The other big story is about social equality, obviously. Trickle-down economics, we all want it to work. We all want a rising tide to lift all boats. And we want that as a society, we want that as a city, we want that as a region. But unfortunately, we do not have the effective mechanisms to make that work at the moment in this way. So we need to think about that social equality piece in our inclusive growth strategies, And productivity doesn't necessarily make us happy. There's a threshold, there's a magic threshold. It's around $60,000, right? £40,000, or it depends how expensive your society is, by the way. But once you go beyond that, productivity increases. You don't necessarily create happier societies. You create more stressed, unhappy and less healthy people. And inequality is a brake on productivity, That super wealth we're seeing now amongst the 1% is being dedicated towards unproductive activities and not increasing productivity within what we call the foundational economy. And that's a real issue. That's a real issue for the UK. It's a real issue at the subnational level, and it's a real issue at city levels. So what kind of economy are we trying to build? Well, something called donut economics gives us an indication of the kinds of things we could start to look at. Donut economics is this wonderful idea developed by Kate Raworth and her team in Oxford. And basically a donut is a shape, and we want to get into the middle of it. It's a really easy visual tool you can use with school kids or in your workplaces. The green bit in the middle, the donut, is the safe and just place. It's the kind of economy we want to create. If you fall within it, you fall below a social floor where you don't have the social goods for a good life. If you go outside it, you overshoot ecologically and you start to undermine your local and global ecosystems, which undermines your social well-being. So the donut is a perfect model for how we transition to a better kind of economy. And it has a number of aspects. Universal basic services, the foundations of our economies: work, housing, transport, water, energy, food. Having universal quotas through which people can thrive allow us to live well and prosper in place. Unless we have those basic quotas in place, then many of people in our communities, especially the lower income thresholds, are not able to thrive and not able to take part in the economy. We need civic wealth building, because we need to, we need to plug the leaks, plug the holes in the. Imagine an economy is like a bucket. It's a leaky bucket. Money comes out of that economy through supply chains, outside the city region. If we plug those holes, we start to recirculate money in the local economy, creating a virtual cycle of growth. And that's a task for our anchor institutions who are at the heart of this. We need people-powered housing. So our housing model is broken. Yeah, we have a housing crisis, an affordability crisis. There are many different models of housing delivery. One is one I've been involved in, community-led housing, where municipalities and civic groups are able to deliver housing at scale. And we see this as a vibrant movement right across the region. And investing in nature is absolutely key, not because it's a nice to have, and not necessarily also because it's a good ecosystem service, but actually because our well-being ultimately depends upon thriving ecosystems, be it clean air, good soil, or pollinators and animals. Yeah. So we actually live in whether we like it or not, the reality is we live in an interdependent web of species, right? And then the final bit of the story is civic democracy. Because if we don't meet basic needs through our changes, we won't take most people with us. They won't understand what we're doing and they won't get our net zero strategy. So making those basic needs through our work is absolutely key to that participation. Okay, so where would I end? Imagine it's 2030 now. What have we done? Yeah, what is West Yorkshire like? Here's a checklist of some of the kinds of innovations we can bring forward. Yeah, an emergency response leadership board. We need those leaders who can get into this emergency mode and start to talk to civic leaders, church leaders, business leaders, research leaders, and say, look, we need a bit of a game-changing plan here. And we can see elements of this already emerging in places like West Yorkshire. We need a wellbeing first donut dashboard, that donut economy I talked about, creating a data dashboard out of that to track our progress towards that. A civic investment fund where we can start to bring down significant funds from our corporate partners who thrive in our regions, yeah, to build that basic social infrastructure, which for various reasons the state isn't able to provide just now. We need a sustainable futures hub to coalesce and bring this together. So partners like we've got this this conference and places like this need to be focused on that sustainable development and information sharing in a civic space right in the middle of the city centre. And we need proof of possible pilots. What is possible? We need to do more experimentation in our communities and our cities, yeah, to show what's possible. And with a cooperative agency and a land trust to back this up. So look, that's where I'm going to end, because my motto is think big, start small, but start now. I hope that was a nice way to end the conference. And so thanks very much for being here. And yeah, if there are any questions, we've perhaps got time for that. So thank you very much.